Warhammer 40,000 is the most popular miniatures tabletop war game, aside from historical games, by Games Workshop. Warhammer 40,000 has had 3 serious competitors over the years, most of which competed between Warhammer 40k's 2nd and 3rd to early mid-4th edition of the game. The first competitor to Warhammer 40,000 that failed, and unfortunately never came back, was Void the Maelstrom. Void the Maelstrom was a game by FASA Corporation, who brought Battletech, Crimson Skies, and Shadowrun to the market. The later Shadowrun being a tabletop RPG game primarily, but this game was a direct competitor to 40k. 28mm models, multiple factions, each faction having its own army book, equating to equivalent of a codex that you find Games Workshop sells for Warhammer 40k. This was about a vortex pulling in unlikely planets together and having factions fight each other that were not necessarily in the same part of the universe. It had interesting standout models. It sold well initially. It had novels for it. Does it sound familiar? Well, FASA collapsed due to business issues, not down to sales. It was an administration issue, and its IPs were pulled apart. This game, being its newest venture, faded into obscurity. There was a Kickstarter to try and restart it again with a 2nd edition, but it didn't get enough funding, and so disappeared into obscurity. It can still now be purchased, either via Ralpalfa Europe or Ironwind Metals, but it's ceased development. The second competitor, and my absolute favourite setting, including when taking into account Warhammer 40k, was Warzone, and this was set in the Mutant Chronicles setting. Mutant Chronicles is a eclectic mix of diesel punk, demonic horror, think Doom, Event Horizon, neo-noir, and cyberpunk, all blended together to make a coherent setting and universe. Again, 28mm, similar force sizes to 40k during its 2nd and here 3rd edition. There was a later attempt to restart this game called Warzone Resurrection, but it was made by Prodos and they took on more than they could chew with IPs around Alien vs Predator and that being sold to Disney, and so that company really was a new up-and-coming starter and failed. But who initially launched his game, it died off with full-coloured rule books, huge box sets with hard plastic kits in them for the models, multi-part, everything like 40k, really sold well, went into issues surrounding business operations, business administration, was not to do with outright sales and just not gaining sales. Now this fell out into obscurity. This is trying to be brought back by a smaller company this year, known as Warzone Eternal. Now Warzone Eternals had finally a successful Kickstarter that was well funded and they've got a good model range. So hopefully this one comes back. But there was a 3rd and final competitor that came out the latest, and it has stayed around all this while. But as far as development goes, it's ceased. But now this year, it's the first of the initial 40k competitors to come back with a brand new edition, and it's been licensed out to a company that's fully supporting the game and has the full model range available on a website. And so the 3rd competitor was Void. And this is now the brand new Void 2nd edition, or Void 2.0. Now this game ended with a revised version, Void 1.1, and stayed that way for years. It had all of the Force books made, but just everything was frozen, put on ice. You could still buy models, but it became more of a niche game and was left behind by not having new updates and additions. So this is very interesting to me. This is a kind of a sleeper hit in effect. This is a direct competitor to 40k in 2024 with a brand new edition and a box set to start it off. So I'm going to do an unboxing and initial reaction. I've not seen this. I've not read the latest rules. At the moment, I haven't been able to find anyone else reviewing this on YouTube. So I thought, well, that's why I gave you the little introduction to the history. Do an unboxing and initial thoughts here in front of you. So what comes in Void's box set? So first thing to say is this is about colony wars, and again it's 28mm models, plastic kits. You get 2 metal HQs as bonus models, but they're multi-part plastic kits like your 40k. Now we have 50 models here, 20 for the Viridian Interdict Marines and 30 Junker Convict Legionnaires, and the 2 extra models you get in metal though are Major Icarus Trask and Praetor Maximus. So the 2 forces in here One is like this jungle planet Marines force, think Catachans, but mix them with a kind of anime Wolf's Brigade look to them. So you can have heavier armor on them all the way down to what looked like similar to the Catachans, which had that Vietnam in space vibe to them. So there were alien races, synthetic robot races in this. The Legionnaires were like a cross between the Mad Max and the Fallout New Vegas Rome faction with, I would say, the 40k Mars pattern war machines from Epic. So they have these huge, vast, giant war machines like you would find in exaggerated 40k. So in this case, it's picked these two factions. There was 5 all in all. The rule books come in here. It still uses templates, apparently, and the counters come in here. Now, this was always a D10 system. So those familiar with Hex and Counter know that is a classic use of dice for Hex and Counter war games. So D10 for me works really well because often some of the best rule systems out there are from the Hex and Counter games. So let's see what's inside this. The artwork is interesting. I don't recognise where that's from, but it's certainly got a grimdark vibe to it now that they've picked. This was never considered as grimdark as either Warzone or 40k, but we shall see where it's now going with this new edition. The colour palette reminds me a lot of the 3rd edition of 40k look. Okay, so the first one we have is we have a battle book for one of the planets. So one of the planets they're trying to colonize, the battle for Monoceros 3. And it looks like we have 4 of the factions here. We have Vassa, the Legionnaires, Syntha, Viridians. So we haven't got the 5th alien faction on this planet. So they're obviously not, the aliens aren't going for this, but it was mentioned on the back of the box. So the aliens are there. The Draconis Galaxy. And we have the various factions and their planets there. Again, this is a smaller galaxy map than 40k, so it's a bit easier to grasp as a beginner, but it has got that same layout really. And then we zoom back into the planet itself, so that's really cool with a key there for everything. So this is already a very clear opening to a campaign for me. I very much like this as a more beginner friendly introduction to a lore heavy tabletop war game. Yeah, you can see the slight anime style to it, but really, to be honest, I'm thinking this is more like, do you remember the cartoon Aeon Flux? I'm thinking this is more of a French comics, bande dessinée look in the end, that seems to be going for. I don't know if that's accidental, but seems to be a bit of a mishmash of grim dark and French science fiction, which is well up my street. So here we have some of the older models. You can see they're a bit dated, like dinosaur riding dudes. You know, if you think about this, you go back to the early 2000s, this is definitely competing with Games Workshop here. You think of the Imperial Guard. So introducing all the factions here in relation to this planetary campaign, but these are the original models here, we can see. Some of them, I think, hold up better than others. All of these are metal still. There's the Syntha. Vassa. Yeah, this definitely, although it was trying anime, this is definitely coming out as French science fiction, which is really good, really unique in tabletop wargaming, actually. Okay, then we have the forces that I assume use the box set. Yeah, yes. So this is your quick start army list, which is great. And we've got special rules here, look, full of special rules, just like 40k. So there we have that. Now that's a good little start. And now we have the combat book. Now this is a little handy rule book for size. Oh, I recognise that. It's a classic bit of artwork from the original game. Very good, yeah. And you can get that grim, dark, violent look to it there with the Junkers and that Roman Legion vibe to it. Yeah, that's a good look. It is coming off quite interesting here. I find this high resolution of this smaller printout makes the artwork pop quite well in the colour. Yeah, the oversized guns, check, just like Warzone. to compete with 40k. So we have an introduction and we have the rules. So let's have a look, read this first. So we have, talking about the playing area, your force, units, squads and individuals. And we go through the stat lines. So we have assault, which is AS, shooting. And so higher values are better. So it is 1 to 10 on the stats, which I guess match the 10 sides of the dice as well. That's an interesting dynamic. Strength, toughness, wounds. I remember some friends of mine when I was growing up were into this game, well, in the 1.1 variant of it, and commands, size and move, so it's quite familiar to 40k, really. Battles, duration and points limit, so yeah, points limits are here. I wonder if they're renewed. Now there is a model facing, that's interesting, and then we have victory conditions, strategic withdrawal, that's a nice option. Yeah, I think I'll read this over and maybe do a review if anyone's interested. We have a basic deployment, 12 inches from the board edge they're going for, classic. And then we have an initiative, rolling the d10. You give out your orders. This is a very neat rule book. I can follow this quite easily. Although it's blocks of text, we've got nice plain bullet points. The text size is a good size, easy to read from here. I've just got the camera zoomed out, so it probably looks larger for you. I'll just zoom in. There we go. Now you can see the easy to read text. So movement, rally checks, squad cohesion, examples with the diagrams. That's great. So we have a 2 inches cohesion there, which is good. That looks like the standard cohesion. Terrain. The 3 types, normal, rough and impassable, very similar. Yeah, this looks nice and doesn't look overwhelming. This looks nice and streamlined here, I think. Again, more diagrams about shooting, who can shoot. Toughness tables. So we're going back to previous editions of 40k there, on a D10 scale. Shock checks, now that's a bit different. And shock counters. Templates and how to use them. Speculative shooting, that's interesting. And invading incoming fire. So yeah, there's some interesting stuff here. Hand tank combat. Cover saves. Variations on cover. Flimsy, solid, fortified, armoured. You're getting cover saves from 9+ all the way down to 5+ on a D10. So covers not quite as good on flimsy, which I like. That's a better scaling on the D10 than 40k. Then we have weapons. Now we do have ranges, short, medium, long and extreme. So it is a little bit more complex in the shooting there. And then we have the weapon types, which is typical. Armor piercing, incendiary and direct fire. Yeah. Countercharging. Yeah, it looks, overall, this looks fairly good. It looks familiar to the previous edition. It'll be interesting to see the differences between the two. And then recruiting your battle force. Now for now, I assume, other than that battle book, we are looking, yeah, here we go, in weapons table, we're looking at forces from the Void 1.1 army books. I don't know if they're going to be relaunched. And here we have a Void 2 quick reference sheet. That's good. And then we have the counters: Overwatch, Panic, Activated, Wound, and Shock. I like the fact that you've got activated counters there. That's really good. Okay, so let's have a look. Ah, brilliant. So you get, in the box, you get a nice set of D10s there, 2 sets of colours. You're getting 10 D10s, which is great. So you don't have to buy your own. Here's the free models you get in metal. Let's see what we got here. Oh wow, you can see the difference already, it being 28mm. Let's have a look. Slaughter bases. Blimey. Yeah, I tell you, if anyone's looking for nostalgia, this is nostalgia with it being a bit more modernised in presentation from the box set, I would say, because it's just a lot more direct, less faffing around. So this came in at £65 for the whole game box, which is pretty competitive considering what I'm looking at so far. So we have, let's see if we can zoom in. We have the Roman legionary character here, the Praetor Maximus. Good amount of detail, I would say. Bit of an old school pose there. A little bit dated. This is from the older model range, but looking good. Oh, okay. We've actually got 3 models here. So they've chucked in probably a pre-order bonus, maybe. We have a Viridian looking character there, which I need to work out what that is. Yeah, that was the pre-order bonus, I should think. And then here he is in 2 parts. This would be the lieutenant for the Viridians, which I think we saw the artwork for in the book earlier. Oh, okay, so these need to be clipped apart. So they've got little round gluing joints there. So he's got this battle armor look to him. Got these gauntlet blades. Plastic sprues in what looks like black plastic here, which is a bit different. But why not? They're sturdy on the sprues. They're going to need clipping off. You're not going to want to... Yeah, I would use clippers for those. I don't think they're going to snap off. It's hard plastic. They look clean. It's simple to assemble. Here we go, look. Look at all the sprues. That is solid. And then all of the bases to come with them. It's a lot of bases. So we used to get in 2nd edition 40k. Oh, here we go. Large templates. These pop out. Wow, look at them. Classic Flamer templates. These are from the 1.1 original box set. Look, reused them. Yeah, I don't think there was any point in going for acrylic ones. They look like thick cardstock. I think that's just fine. Large blast templates. Very good. Yeah. And then the counters as promised. Well, that's brilliant. All in all, they need to release new Force books, but I'm wondering if this rules here has been tidied up. Actually, the Force books from 1.1 and the points costs slot in nicely. It might be that they're actually at a state of development where you just don't really need to rush in and redo the army books, because you can just focus on newer models and plastic kits like this, and you've got a decent game already out of the box. So that would be good. Now they do sell all the old metal models, which is really handy. So there's Void 2.0. My initial impressions are they're reusing some of the things from 1.1, but it's the later edition of Void before it ceased. So those reused elements to it, like the templates, are just fine. They've got production value to them. I particularly like the clearness of the rulebook. And I think this introductory book is really nice, just really easy to get to grips with what you're looking at, I would say, and you're playing. It's not overwhelming. You haven't got this huge tome like 40k. We have the 5th faction that aren't mentioned in here, but again, they were alien race and they're considered later onto this. So all in all, I would say Zeb Games, well done to them. They've made a nice, decent little box here for about 60 to 65 pounds, and it looks like you can really get going. You've got a brilliant core to a force. You can expand it immediately without having to buy more mainline troops for both of those factions. So you can just jump onto their website, I would say, and pick up some of the more exciting units to go with them, complementary units. I mean, additionally as well, the army books themselves are free downloads, so you wouldn't even have to buy the printed versions, which they still sell. So you wouldn't have to pay more money out to get your rules for the factions here. So I wouldn't mark that down, because you can just go in and actually just download this for free. So the only thing you really need here, by the looks of it, other than all your paints and everything, is just a tape measure. So that's great. So all in all, I would say this is a nice low budget alternative to 40k. Now, will people be interested in it? I'm not so sure. I think it's likely a better game system still than 40k. Probably more rewarding, but due to the lack of advertising and also the fact that the 40k miniatures are so premium, people are just absolutely obsessed with the eye candy, might see this as a lesser product. The 28mm scale is smaller, noticeably smaller now. I mean, 40k has gone somewhere between 32 heroic and 36mm. Let's face it, the scale creep is absolutely ginormous. I mean, mostly because their miniatures were actually out of scale originally, because all the vehicles were too small and the Marines weren't true scale to the smaller than Space Marine figures. So yeah, but having said that, if I was a teenager, something like that, or someone in my early 20s, and I wanted to get into this kind of large scale tabletop wargaming, which isn't typically my area. I used to play 40k growing up and some of these competitors, but it was more because others of my similar age were playing them. I always used to prefer the historical and the more mass battle games. But I think this is a good start. I think that with what's here in the box, you've got more of a complete experience for more of affordable price tag than competitors out there. And because of this plastic, this is, to me, what makes this worth being out on the market. If these were all metal models, I would say no, it'd be just too much. But yeah, you can easily store these. They're not going to chip and paint on the paintwork so easy. And they just look like logical and simple assembly. You don't need vast instructions to try and just work out how these all go together, and that's brilliant. So I'll leave you with that, and maybe I'll do a battle report on the contents of this box, and I might add a few little things to it, which I have from some of their Urban Wars skirmish game stuff. My friend of mine donated a couple of old boxes with some Syntha and Viridian models, so we can throw those into this new Void 2.0 and see how they run. Okay, thanks all for watching, and comment if you want to see any more about Void 2. If you're just intrigued about 40k's direct competitors, I'm definitely going to do a review of the new Warzone. I've jumped into that Kickstarter because I love the setting so much. It's purely for an aesthetic, and that's a D20 based system. But yes, Void 2.0, D10 system, looks like a halfway house between modern 40k and the older 40k for complexity, but it looks like it's a lot less clunky and quite refined now in this new version. I have already received previous comments about the combat zone introduction. That went down well, and people want to see battles for that, so I'm going to jump in probably next and do that. So we'll do a few games of combat zone, but if you want to see anything on Void, then let me know.